From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. I requested that music, Oshokan Farewell, for the offertory because it reminds me of my home in the Hudson Valley. Jay Younger, who wrote the song, lives there. So, much of what I'm about to read to you today is taken from the liner notes of a 1958 Folkways record called Songs of the Suffragettes. The notes were written by Irwin Silber, and I've adapted and excerpted those notes. The right of the citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. With those few simple words, American women gained the right to vote. Today, when we are still fighting for the right of everyone to vote and to have their vote counted, we would do well to remember how the issue of women's suffrage racked the nation from coast to coast. Riots, demonstrations, outraged sermons, indignant editorials, and frenzied emotional outbursts from all sides highlight the history of the long uphill fight for women's electoral rights, which was capped by triumph with the adoption of the 19th Amendment. The first important step forward came with the emergence of the great anti-slavery agitation of the 1830s. And the song by Charlene actually describes it very well, and the whole women's suffrage movement. So have a nice day, everybody. No, I have a little more to say about that. The natural ideological affinity of the two causes was heightened by the active and leading role played by many women in the abolitionist movement, such as Lucretia Mott and Elizabeth Cady Stanton. Outstanding male figures in the battle against slavery, like William Lloyd Garrison and Frederick Douglass, were also ardent champions of women's rights. Another famous abolitionist and suffragist was Sojourner Truth. As you may know, Sojourner Truth was born into slavery in upstate New York, not far from where I live now. She escaped in 1826, even though she knew that slavery would be abolished in New York State in 1827. She spent the rest of her life traveling around the country, giving speeches and singing songs about abolition and women's rights. Here is one of the songs that is attributed to her. And like most of the songs I'm going to sing today, they are new words to old tunes. I am pleading for my people to have their rights restored, for they have long been toiling and yet have no reward. They are forced the crops to culture, but not for them they yield. Although but late and early, they labor in the field. While I bear upon my body the scars of many a gash, I'm pleading for my people who groan beneath the lash. I'm pleading for the mothers who gaze in wild despair upon the hated auction block and see their children there. So then, as now, children are ripped away from their parents. In 1840, Lucretia Mott and Elizabeth Cady Stanton were among the American delegates to the First World Anti-Slavery Convention in London. The presence of these women caused an uproar in the assembly, and the convention refused to seat them as delegates. Undaunted, the entire American delegation refused to take part and took seats in the gallery for the remainder of the proceedings. Stirred and agitated by their experiences in London, Cady and Stanton resolved that upon returning home, they would initiate the campaign for women's rights on a wider scale than ever before. In 1848, and I just looked this up this morning, it was July 19th and 20th, 1848. They called the first American Women's Rights Convention in Seneca Falls, New York. By 1852, women's rights groups in many parts of the country were holding conventions. Despite this, the monumental struggle against slavery eclipsed the women's rights movement until after the Civil War. Although there were dissenters who said, why should black men get the vote before white women? But most of the suffragists were abolitionists themselves and understood the necessity of winning the anti-slavery battle first. It is significant that the first suffrage songs of which we have any record do not appear until after 1865. In 1869, the territory of Wyoming adopted a constitution, the very first clause of which guaranteed equal political rights for all male and female citizens. That's a quote. With this major breakthrough, Wyoming became a shining symbol for the suffrage cause. 20 years later, Wyoming's admission to the Union was almost jeopardized by its firm stand in behalf of women's right to vote. At the height of the storm, Wyoming's territorial delegate to Congress notified the legislature that the territory might not be granted statehood if it did not eliminate women's suffrage. The legislature immediately dispatched a telegram. We will remain out of the Union 100 years rather than come in without women's suffrage. Yeah. This inspired paeans of praise and tunes of triumph. Erwin Silber was partial to alliteration. Such as this song, which happens to have been written by a man. It's called Song of Wyoming. From Wyoming's rocky valley to the wild New Hampshire hills, from our northern lakes of silver to the sunny southern rills, lo, the clarion call of freedom, all the listening silence thrills. Lo, the clarion call of freedom, all the listening silence thrills. We have heard the voice of freedom from that far-off western shore. We have heard the echoes calling as our fathers heard of yore. Let us sing its stirring music, equal rights forevermore. Let us sing its stirring music, equal rights forevermore. We have watched the dawning splendor of a promise in the skies. We have heard his accents tender, lo, ye faithful ones, arise. Who would equal justice render, I will never more despise. Who would equal justice render, I will never more despise. Thank you. In November 1872, bless you, Susan B. Anthony was one of 14 women who defied the law to cast a ballot in the presidential election. Anthony was arrested for, quote, knowingly voting without having a lawful right to vote, and on June 18, 1873, was found guilty. The next day, when her lawyer appealed the verdict, she addressed the courts in response to a question from the judge, Ward Hunt, And Richard Maddox will come up here and we'll do a little reenactment that has been edited somewhat for content, for brevity. And he will play the judge. Here you go.
Stand up. Has the prisoner anything to say why sentence shall not be pronounced?
Yes, Your Honor. I have many things to say. For in your ordered verdict of guilty, you have trampled underfoot every vital principle of our government. Robbed of the fundamental privilege of citizenship, I am degraded from the status of a citizen to that of a subject, and not only myself individually, but all of my sex are, by Your Honor's verdict, doomed to political subjection under this so-called Republican form of government.
The court cannot listen to a rehearsal of arguments. The prisoner's counsel has already consumed 3 hours in presenting.
May it please Your Honor, I am not arguing the question, but simply stating the reasons why sentence cannot in justice be pronounced against me. Your denial of my citizens' right to vote is the denial of my right of consent as one of the governed, the denial of my right of representation as one of the taxed, the denial of my right to a trial by a jury of my peers as an offender against law. Therefore, the denier of my sacred rights to life, liberty, property,
and the court cannot allow the prisoner to go on.
But Your Honor will not deny me this one and only poor privilege of protest against this high-handed outrage upon my citizens' rights. May it please the court to remember that since the day of my arrest last November, this is the first time that either myself or any person of my disfranchised class has been allowed a word of defense before judge and jury.
The prisoner must sit down. The court will not allow it.
All of my prosecutors, from the 8th Ward corner grocery politician who entered the complaint, to Your Honor on the bench, not one is my peer, but each and all are my political sovereigns. And had Your Honor submitted my case to the jury, as was clearly your duty, even then I should have had just cause of protest, for not one of those men was my peer, but native or foreign-born, white or black, rich or poor, educated or ignorant, awake or asleep, sober or drunk, each and every man of them was my political superior, hence, in no sense, my peer.
The court must insist. The prisoner has been tried according to established forms of law.
Yes, Your Honor, but by forms of law, all made by men, interpreted by men, administered by men, in favor of men, and against women, and hence, Your Honor's ordered verdict of guilty against a United States citizen for the exercise of that citizen's right to vote, simply because that citizen was a woman and not a man. But a few short years ago, the same man-made forms of law declared it a crime to give a cup of cold water, a crust of bread, or a night's shelter to a panting fugitive as he was tracking his way to Canada. And every man or woman in whose veins coursed a drop of human sympathy violated that wicked law, reckless of consequences, and was justified in doing so. As then, precisely so now, must women, to get their right to a voice in this government, take it. And I have taken mine and mean to take it at every possible opportunity. Richard Maddox. You'll have to forgive me. I tuned this before things started, but it's a banjo. It's out of tune already. Well, as Susan B. Anthony stated, if women could be forced to pay taxes and obey laws, they were certainly entitled to have some say in electing the public officials who decided to impose the tax and pass the laws. To tax one who's not represented is tyranny, tell if you can. Why woman should not have the ballot, she's taxed just the same as a man. King George, you remember, denied us the ballot but sent us the tea. And we, without asking a question, just tumbled it into the sea. Then to justice let's ever be true, to each citizen render his due, equal rights and protection forever, to all neath the red, white, and blue. That one man shall not rule another, unless by that other's consent is the principle deep underlying the framework of this government. So as woman is punished for breaking the laws that she cannot gainsay, let us give her a voice in the making, or ask her no more to obey. Then to justice let's ever be true, to each citizen render his due, equal rights and protection forever, to all neath the red, white, and blue. Equal rights and protection forever, to all neath the red, white, and blue. Votes for women became one of the major national issues of the 1900-1920 period. This is the era of the women's parades, the torchlight demonstrations, the suffragists chaining themselves to lampposts. Sad to say, one reform, prohibition, can be directly attributed to women's suffrage, and it can be argued that that one turned out to be worse than the evil it was attempting to correct. However, feminists who, in many cases, rightly associated spousal abuse with alcohol consumption, believed that to free women from abusive husbands, all that was needed was to prohibit the manufacture and sale of alcoholic beverages. Thus, this song lauds women for going to the polls to put down the liquor traffic. If the men should see the women going to the polls to put down the liquor traffic, need it vex their souls? If we're angels, as they tell us, can we once suppose that all the men would frown on us when going to the polls? We love our boys, our household joys, we love our girls as well. The law of love is from above, against that we ne'er rebel. No discharge have Christian women from the war with sin. At the polls with Gog and Magog must the fight begin. Since we've Bible marching orders, need it fright our souls, though all the men should frown on us when going to the polls. We love our boys, our household joys, we love our girls as well. The law of love is from above, against that we ne'er rebel. Now I'd like to invite Richard Maddox back up. He's our token male here. And this song was one of the most popular of the suffrage songs. It appears in a number of suffrage song collections and apparently was widely sung at rallies. I have a neighbor, one of those not very hard to find, who knows it all without debate and never change their mind. I asked him, what of woman's rights? He said in tones severe,
my mind on that is all made up. Keep woman in her sphere.
I saw a man in tattered garb forth from the grog shop come. He squandered all his cash on drink and starved his wife at home. I asked him, should not woman vote? He answered with a sneer,
I taught my wife to know her place, keep woman in her sphere.
I met an earnest, thoughtful man not many days ago, who pondered all deep human law, the honest truth to know. I asked him, what of woman's rights? The answer came sincere.
You know, her rights are just the same as mine. Let woman choose her sphere.
Richard Maddox. You're going to pick up the chorus of this one right away. Oh dear, what can the matter be? Dear, dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Women are wanting the vote. Women have husbands, they are protected. Women have sons by whom they're directed. Women have fathers, they're not neglected. Why are they wanting to vote? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Dear, dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Women are wanting the vote. Women have homes, there they should labor. Women have women have children whom they should favor. Women have time to learn of each neighbor. Why are they wanting the vote? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Dear, dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Women are wanting the vote. Women can dress, they love society. Women have cash with its variety. Women can pray with sweetest piety. Why are they wanting to vote? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Dear, dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Women are wanting the vote. Women have reared all the sons of the brave. Women have shared in the burdens they gave. Women have labored your country to save. That's why we're wanting the vote. Thank you. Well, World War I gave women another argument for the vote. During the war, they kept the home fires burning till the boys came home, as the popular song went, doing the country's work when the men went off to war. This next song actually began life as a poem. It was written by a woman named Alice Duer Miller. I assume not related to our Alice. She wrote a great many very clever poems under the title, Are Women People? You can Google that and find them all. My daughter sent me a link to the collection, and I chose this poem to write a simple tune to. I love the way it points out the hypocrisy of men who wanted women to stay home until they were needed to help with the war effort. Whoa. I went to ask my government if they would set me free. They gave a pardon, crook a vote, but hadn't one for me. The men about me laughed and frowned and said, go home because we really can't be bothered when we're busy making laws. And it's women this and women that, and women have no sense. But it's pay your taxes promptly when it comes to the expense. It comes to the expense, my dears, it comes to the expense. It's pay your taxes promptly when it comes to the expense. I went into a factory to earn my daily bread. Men said, the home is woman's sphere. I have no home, I said. But when the men all marched to war, they cried to wife and maid, oh, never mind about the home, but save the export trade. And it's women this and women that, and home's the place for you. But it's patriotic angels when there's outside work to do. There's outside work to do, my dears, there's outside work to do. It's patriotic angels when there's outside work to do. Well, we really are not senseless, and we are not angels too, but very human beings, human just the same as you. It's hard upon occasion to be forceful and sublime when you're treated as incompetent 3/4 of the time. And it's women this and women that, and woman's like a hen. But it's do the country's work alone when war takes off the men. And it's women this and women that, and everything you please. But woman is observant, be assured that woman sees. Yes, woman is observant, be assured that woman sees. Thank you. So on June 4th, 1919, just a little over 100 years ago, Congress passed the Women's Suffrage Amendment and sent it to the states for ratification. The amendment became part of the Constitution on August 26, 1920. And the vision of those first suffragists who gathered together in Seneca Falls in 1848, July 19th and 20th, at last was a reality. Bring the good old bugle, boys, we'll sing another song. Sing it with a spirit that shall start the cause along. Sing it as we ought to sing it, cheerily and strong, giving the ballot to the mothers. Hurrah, 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 we sing the Jubilee. Hurrah, hurrah, the homes they shall be free. So we'll sing the chorus from the mountains to the sea, giving the ballot to the mothers. Bring the dear old banner, boys, and fling it to the wind. Mother, wife, and daughter, let it shelter and defend. Equal rights our motto is, we're loyal to the end, giving the ballot to the mothers. Hurrah, hurrah, we bring the Jubilee. Hurrah, hurrah, the homes they shall be free. So we'll sing the chorus from the mountains to the sea, giving the ballot to the mothers, giving the ballot to the mothers. Woo-hoo. Oh no, I'm going to do this on banjo too. So this is our closing hymn. In the order of service, it says Women Rising. That's the name that my friend Charlene gave to it, but what it really is This Land Is Your Land, with a couple of extra verses. So if you'd like to rise for the closing hymn, it's not in your order of service, but I think you all know the chorus, right? Let me just untangle this strap here. There we go. Thank you. So we'll start with the chorus. I wrote the first verse. Charlene wrote the second verse. The third verse, Woody Guthrie wrote. If you know it, please join in. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island. From the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. Women are leaders, women are voters. We serve in Congress and on the SCOTUS. Someday a woman will be our POTUS. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. Rise up, women, it's time to heal. Mother Earth needs a new Green Deal. Daughters, mothers, sisters free. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land.